Tension is rising in the Central African Republic after reports emerged that some foreign troops have been gathering just a few kilometers off the capital, Bangui. It is feared that this could be a likely counterattack against the Seleka rebels. And this comes just months after the rebels, led by the current caretaker President Michel Djotodia, overthrew former President Francois Bozize. Kofa Mrenje has more details.
Residents in the capital, Bangui, are now living in fear. Just months after the Seleka rebels staged a coup that toppled the then-President Francois Bozize, tension is rising again. This is after reports emerged that Central African, Congolese and South African troops have been regrouping on the Congo side of the border with CAR for a possible counterattack against the Seleka rebels. Sources in the capital, Bangui, told CCTV that caretaker President Michel Djotodia had to cut short a three-day official trip to Khartoum after word of a possible invasion started to go around.
And some of us who are from here, we really pray that the international community should not let this country just collapse, because it's very dangerous for the region and even for the peace around the world.
The security crisis facing the Central African Republic since the rebels toppled the former government has affected greatly living standards in the country. Food prices have shot up significantly. Salaries have been delayed for months as banks run out of cash. Regional leaders are now calling on leaders, both rebels and civilian, to set their differences aside and develop the resource-rich country.
We're talking to the authorities in Central Africa and telling them that you guys need to sit down. You guys need to sit down because what's happening is not good, not only for you, but for your people. Now, if we go on like this, no longer be a country for you to run. Even for those that have political ambition, what country will you be the leader of?
Central African Republic is ranked among the poorest countries in Africa, despite having rich deposits of minerals, including gold and diamond. Kofa Mrenje, CCTV.
While the Central African Republic has been racked by a series of coups and rebellions since its independence from France in 1960. The latest, the rebel takeover, began on 10th December of 2012 when thousands of fighters from the Seleka rebel coalition attacked the capital, Bangui. Then in March of 2013, the rebels ousted the then-President Francois Bozize, forcing him to flee to neighboring Cameroon. The Seleka commander Michel Djotodia immediately appointed himself transitional president, charged with leading the chronically unstable nation to elections within 18 months. On May the 31st, Djotodia's government issued an arrest warrant for Bozize, accusing him of crimes against humanity. However, Djotodia has struggled to rein in his former rebel fighters who were accused of executing opponents, raping and looting homes. In the meantime, leaders of the Central African region have resolved to provide financial and technical support to assist the fragile government in the Central African Republic. Now, meeting on the sidelines of a Pan-African investment conference in Libreville, Gabon, the heads of state of 6 African countries voiced concern that prolonged instability in the Central African Republic was creating an unstable investment environment in the region. On the sidelines of the forum, I spoke with the Gabonese President, Ali Bongo Ondimba, on possible long-term measures proposed by the region for the Central African Republic.
We have been assisting and helping that country for now decades, and unfortunately, we see our brothers and sisters in Central Africa still going through difficult times. At this last CEMAC summit, we decided to support even more by sending troops there to help pacify the country, and appease people, and then make sure that provided a peaceful environment for the authorities to conduct, elections, to have, elect proper, representatives that could then revisit, the constitution and then have a good government. So it means that you have the security issue where we are all, really working very hard to help by even sending more people. But Central Africa is a large country, so it demands many soldiers. So we are also appealing to non-regional members to also help us in that field. But at the same time as we are sending more troops, we're also providing support, financial support to that government to make sure that, the civil servants, wages can be paid, but also to support the military operation. But we want to show commitment, from the region. And commitment from the region should be met by commitment from outside the region. But we cannot ask others to do what we cannot do ourselves. So we understood that. So that's why we're committing ourselves, strongly, without waiting for others to come. But everyone has to understand that the security of Central African Republic is very important because the geography, we don't want all the neighbors to be destabilized. So far we have been able to stop destabilizations of the neighboring countries.
What is the long-term, though, objective of CEMAC, for instance, for the CAR? What is the long-term solution?
Well, CEMAC is bringing support to the regional organization at large, which is ECAS. So CEMAC is bringing financial support. According to the Libreville Agreement, we have an interim transitional committee, and with also an interim government, and within 1 year we should start seeing results. 1 year. We want to see results.
And do stay with us here on Africa Live, as still ahead on the program. Global condemnation. The UN Security Council says attack on UN compound in Somalia will not affect the peace efforts. And Ethiopia's exodus. We examine the motives of illegal migrants.
Breaking news. Global trends. CCTV News brings you stories with the different aspects of Africa in the international content. With our reporters across Africa and all over the world, we'll tell you about the real Africa and how it impacts the world. Africa Live, every day, only on CCTV News.
Death toll from the daring raid on United Nations offices in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, Wednesday has risen to 22. 7 gunmen, some strapped with explosives, invaded the offices and fought to the death. Al-Qaeda-linked militant group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for that attack. Somalia Prime Minister Abdi Farah Shirdon condemned the attack, describing it as senseless and despicable. CCTV's Mohammed Hirmoge filed this report from Mogadishu.
The target was the office of the United Nations Development Programme in a supposedly secure part of the capital. A suicide bomber reportedly blew himself up at the gate and his comrades stormed in.
I was inside the compound and these terrorists forced their way into the compound by way of explosives. I saw 6 of them, all of whom are now dead. 3 blew themselves up and we fought with the other 3.
The gun battle lasted at least an hour. Many UN staff made it to a safe room, but some did not.
After a complex engagement, our forces finally subdued the attackers. We know 4 foreign staff of the United Nations and 4 Somali soldiers were killed. We will give further details soon.
The UNDP office is close to the city's fortified airport, which is the main base for the African Union Peacekeeping Force, AMISOM. This was an attack that was coordinated and orchestrated, more like what happened at the courthouse complex on April 14th, where armed men with suicide vests blew themselves up inside the United Nations common compounds that houses the UNDP offices. And this was sophisticated, a coordinated assault similar to the attack on the city's court complex in April that left more than 30 dead. AMISOM branded the attacks as cowardly. Prime Minister Abdi Farah Shirdon insists Al-Shabaab will not stop the country's recovery. He says, quote, violence will not win. Mohammed Hirmoge, CCTV, Mogadishu.
In the meantime, the United Nations Security Council has condemned the deadly attack on its compound in the Somali capital Wednesday. And speaking to journalists at the UN headquarters in New York, the British ambassador to the United Nations, Mark Lyle Grant, says the Security Council is outraged by the attack that left more than 10 people dead. Grant is the Security Council president for the month of June.
The members of the Security Council commend the brave response to the attack by the Somali Armed Forces and AMISOM. The members of the Security Council underline their support for all UN personnel working to bring peace, stability and prosperity to the Somali people. The members of the Security Council reaffirm that terrorism in all its forms and manifestations constitutes one of the most serious threats to international peace and security, and that any acts of terrorism are criminal and unjustifiable regardless of their motivation, wherever and whenever and by whomsoever committed.
Well, let's cross over to CCTV's Guy Henderson joining us live from Johannesburg. Guy, we understand that among the casualties of that attack in Mogadishu are a number of South African nationals. Has there been any official response from South African authorities there?
Well, we've had a statement which has come out from the company that were employing 2 South African citizens who it was confirmed on Tuesday had died in this blast. But in the first 24 hours or so, Denel is the name of the contractor, had said that it wouldn't release the names of those two South African citizens until the family had been informed. That has now taken place. So in the last couple of hours, the company has released the name of those 2 men. The first is Alan Simpson, 53 years old, from the Eastern Cape. The second man is Morne Lotter. He's 41 years old from the Western Cape. There was a third man working for this company who was also killed in this blast, an attack on the United Nations compound in Mogadishu. His name was Isaac Mohammed Osman. He was a Somali national working as an electrician for Denel. Now, Denel is basically a company that sells various military products. It's also a company that clears mines and then arranges security logistics. In this case, that's what these 2 men had been doing, particularly important in Somalia at the moment, given the fact that the UN have only just returned to the UN to its compound in the Somali capital, and given obviously the continued precarious security situation in various parts of Somalia. Obviously, it has improved in the capital Mogadishu to some extent, but this deadly attack, obviously, a reminder that you know, it is still a dangerous situation. So the final thing to say really is that Denel have echoed the response the United Nations itself has given by saying that it will not be deterred by this attack. It will continue to carry out its work in conjunction with the United Nations going forward, that it's removed all of its staff and put them in, for the moment, into a safe compound. So obviously a very tragic event. As you say, the death toll now up to 22. And it is something that from time to time, when these kind of incidents, these tragic incidents take place, South African citizens are perhaps more vulnerable than many, simply because of the high number of South African citizens and former South African military personnel who work, obviously, in the now in the private security sector.
All right, CCTV's Guy Henderson joining us there from Johannesburg. A new report by the International Maritime Bureau and other seafarers groups says piracy off the coast of West Africa has now overtaken Somali piracy. According to the report, 966 sailors were attacked in West Africa in 2012, compared with 851 off the Somali coast. We saw the views of one West African maritime expert.
Our latest statistics reveal 34 cases of piracy in our waters from January up to now. On June 13th, the French tanker Adu was jacked off the coast of Lomé, and so far we do not know its whereabouts. The countries affected by piracy are Nigeria, Benin and Togo. But the most affected one is Nigeria. The problem is serious, and the authorities should take all the necessary measures to address the issue of piracy.
The World Refugee Day is being marked globally this Thursday, and this year's focus is on the tough dilemma facing refugees as they seek to deal with their displacement. But there are other groups of people who choose to flee their country on their own accord. More than 600,000 people have left Ethiopia in the past year to seek a better life elsewhere. The exodus shows no sign of slowing down despite the country's economic growth. CCTV's Girum Chala has more on this issue in the following report.
Migration is a huge headache for Ethiopia. The country's economy is growing, but many young people are simply not convinced they should stay home. Government officials fear they are being misled about the opportunities abroad.
Those who migrate have problems in how they view things. They think they can change their livelihood immediately once they get abroad. Also, the agents give them unrealistic and false prospects.
Previously, Europe and North America were the favorite destinations. Now, more migrants are heading to countries such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Dubai and Kuwait. Their work is often in areas such as child minding or domestic work.
I am planning to go to Kuwait now, and I hope to work there for some time and come back here with good financial standing.
We see a lot of bad things on TV, like people come back with injuries. And that made me to be cautious. And now I'm trying to go abroad using agencies that operate legally.
Even more migrants are expected to leave Ethiopia this year.
In a very short period of time, Ethiopia is expected to be Africa's most populous state. And this has its own challenge. The country must provide job opportunities for the youth to curb the problem of illegal migration. Grumjala, CCTV, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.